What is going on, Sports Minds? It's your host, MJ, coming at you with another episode of the Fantasy Fumble. How the hell you folks doing here today? I can't hear you, so I don't know why I asked you that. Joe, how are you doing today, brother?
Doing pretty well. It's been an exciting week, really interesting week. Again, went 3-3 in my fantasy leagues. It's been pretty good. How about you? How you doing?
I got my ass waxed, Joe. I lost in all of them. I actually shared a pretty funny meme in one of the leagues where it said, when your wives tell you she had a bad day, and I was like, "Oh, you had a fucking bad day. I'm gonna show you what a bad day looks like." That's the man that lost all his fantasy
Yeah,
matchups.
man.
Some were ass whoopings by like 10, 15 points. Some of them were 3 to 5 point losses. So either way, they all stung just the same. But either way, it's still fun. Gives me something to watch for on Sundays.
Yeah, it always makes your Sundays more enjoyable. And the other 8 months out of the year aren't nearly as exciting as these 3 or 4 months that we got lined up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I agree. I'm also one of those that when football season's gone, I don't know what to do with myself. So I hope that you guys keep sharing and following the stream, because the more sponsors you guys get, the more stuff we have to do in the off season. Because they pay us to do it, we have no choice but to do it, right?
That'd be great. Yeah.
So make sure you do, guys. But before we get into that, we're gonna go ahead and let Joe let us know what we have in store for us here today.
Yeah, same as always. We're going to cover some news and notes. Going to get into our hot matchups. Each got one hot matchup where you guys should pay attention to the games specifically, because they create a great game script for fantasy football. And then, of course, the cold calls, the games that create a bad prescription for fantasy football. And after that, we go into our shit calls, and then Big Ball's call of the week, where we make a bold prediction for this upcoming week. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez. Find land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. Now let's get right into our news and notes. We actually have a few things that happened over the last week. Some good news and just some confusing news. First things first, the Raiders want to trade Davante Adams, and it sounds like he wants to be traded. And word on the street is he might be coming to Pittsburgh. So I was happy to hear that, even if it does take away from some of Pickens' production. As a Steelers fan, I like it. Christian Watson is unlikely to be placed on injured reserve. So, he hasn't done a lot this year, but that's good news, because, you never want to see someone out for 4 to 6 weeks. And a couple people are coming back to practice. So TJ Hawkinson is supposed to return to practice on Friday, opening a 21-day window to be activated from IR. And Nick Chubb returned to practice. So that happened sooner than I expected. They're probably not going to get him back on the field anytime soon, but he is practicing in a limited capacity. So that was great to hear. Now let's get into our injuries, because, of course, there are quite a few notable ones. The Washington Commanders running back Brian Robinson did not practice, so keep an eye on that. Of course, we all saw Jonathan Taylor leave the game, and he did not practice today. They're saying it's a mild high ankle sprain, so it's hard to interpret really what's going on, but I would expect him to miss at least this week and then maybe next week. Devin Singletary, I did not realize this until I was actually looking at the practice notes before I put my notes together. So I checked a couple of different websites to make sure I just wasn't reading something incorrectly or something that was old news, but Devin Singletary did not practice today. And he has a groin injury. So that could be something that lingers. And also Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce still not at practice. Cam Akers is not doing much, so I don't really know what to say about that. And then the Steelers, Cordarrelle Patterson and Jaylen Warren also did not practice, probably get some increased reps from Najee Harris because of that. Now, wide receiver, Devontae Adams, as we were talking about looking for a trade, he did not practice. They say he has a hamstring injury. Malik Neighbors, concussion, did not practice. He's probably going to miss this week. Or if he bounces back, he might be limited in the game. Khalil Shakir, he's got an ankle sprain, did not practice. And Carolina Panthers wide receiver Deontay Johnson did not practice. Now moving on to tight end, George Kittle did not practice. He was a late addition to the injury report. He plays through a lot of injuries, but he does sustain a lot of injuries, so you got to keep an eye on that. Trey McBride still not back at practice. I did expect him to return this week, but definitely keep an eye on that. And David Njoku did not practice, that ongoing nagging ankle injury. I'm really hoping he returns too, because those are two tight ends that I have rostered in quite a few leagues.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how like a lot of those injuries can affect a lot of people's lineups because there's some pretty big names in there, especially if they don't play. Some of the waiver wire ads that I would recommend in place, obviously, like Trey Sherman's going to be your guaranteed in place for Jonathan Taylor. Although I know Mike Goodson's taking some snaps, so who knows if Trey Sherman will capitalize on that, but that's the logical next step or pickup here. Tank Bigsby, obviously, he had some pretty good snaps in place of Travis Etienne. I think Travis Etienne was a bit of it was an injury at first, turned into a frustration benching, and then he that's why he didn't come out for another quarter afterwards. But that's why Tank Bigsby looked pretty good. So I think he's someone that you would like to pick up as well because he could be like a for your bye week guaranteed spot start just for like a good 10 points. A guy that's under the radar that no one's talking about, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's coming back from non-injury list for football here. So obviously there's a carousel of running backs. I know we thought Carson Steele was going to be the guy a couple weeks ago. Now it looks like Kareem Hunt's the guy, right? And one thing we have always talked about is as Andy Reid does a committee, and that's just how it is, right? That's one thing we always agreed. Andy Reid will have a committee, and so if that committee is going to be Kareem Hunt's the lead back, first and second down, then that means Edwards-Helaire is going to be the third down and the pass option guy and the critical down guy. So, because that's the role he's always had since he was drafted, and this is his last year with the team. So, there's a good chance that he's going to maintain that role. But so he's a sneaky pickup behind the scenes. And then because of those injuries, here's some really good plays or some must starts because of the Christian Watson injury and Jordan Love obviously playing. You have to start Joshua Dobbs and Jaden Reed, right? Wide receivers for Green Bay. They're going to have some pretty good games, especially Dobbs. Now he's projected to have a good game. Or Deontay Wicks. He's definitely he had 13 targets, I think, last game.
Yeah, that was strange. 13 targets, only 5 catches. But I personally think because he was like at the top of everyone's list for waiver ads. I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah. I think 2 touchdowns, I believe, as well.
He's going to take Christian Watson's spot, and I don't think he's going to be that open because if he's taking Christian Watson's spot, which is the number 1 receiver, the X receiver, he's going to get the top cornerback too.
And Jordan Love also threw a ton of passes. I think it was over 50.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and they were down like the whole game. So since the first quarter started, they were down. So,
Yeah, and
there wasn't a minute that they weren't.
And the thing is, I noticed on waivers, the people that were projected and the people that were picked up, like 3 or 4 were at the top of that list were Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
You had Kraft,
Deontay
Dobbs,
Wicks.
Deontay Wicks, possibly Elijah. What's his last name?
You talking about Elijah Mitchell?
No,
Elijah Mitchell's the running back. You talking about Ed? It's like Elijah Edwards or something like that.
For the Packers,
the running back
backup. I'm saying he was kind of towards the top of running backs as well.
Emmanuel Wilson. That's
Emmanuel. I was saying Elijah. Emmanuel.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Emmanuel Wilson. Yeah,
he was kind of up there towards the top too. So you had like 4 Green Bay Packers at the top of waivers for 3 different positions: tight end, running back, wide receiver. I agree with the fact that they're good short-term ads, but that kind of volume you can't expect every week. Those guys got a ton of volume.
It's just scenarios, like this is a week where like people are just desperate for a start. Those are guys that are going to get you some really nice flex points. They're not sexy every week. They're just a one-night stand, right? You just want to take her home and forget about her in the next day, Sorry
right.
for those.
But hopefully it's offended. A good experience and it's not like Carson Steele where you wake up hating yourself and wondering what you're doing with your life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
But another thing is, with these bye weeks, you do have to look for those sneaky plays. And, the Colts, it's hard to say, Josh Downs was available. I grabbed him, but it's hard to say what they're going to do. And I noticed, like you were saying about Reed relying on a committee, traditionally, when Jonathan Taylor was not active, yeah, they had Zach Moss last year, but before last year, because last year it was all Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, but before last year, that team always operated by a committee. Mm-hmm. Back in the 2020, 2021, they were always running back by committee. So part of me is a little nervous that Trey Sermon might be part of a committee, but I did grab him in a couple of leagues too.
And trade him over to me, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, he was on no one's radar because everyone looks at these projections, and I still have him. I still have him on two leagues too. But everyone looks at these projections. I traded him in 2 leagues, and I kept him in 2 leagues. But people will just look towards the top. You got to do your homework. If you didn't know that Jonathan Taylor got banged up, then Trey Sermon's not on your radar, and he's still projected at like 3 points, which I don't. Yeah. I can't really make sense of that. If they're talking about a high ankle sprain, chances are Jonathan Taylor's going to miss. But anyway, a lot of guys that are just, casual fantasy football players that aren't freaks like Manny and I, they're not going to notice that kind of stuff. So it's always, you always got to do your homework.
You do. And a couple other hot picks they're not necessarily waiver wire ads, but they're under the radar flyers. Because of the possible concussion to Malik Neighbors, I would definitely run Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, he's a must start, right? That's going to be a sneaky good flex. You're going to get like a really good solid floor with them. And then, of course, Xavier Legette, right? Deontay Johnson does play. He may not be 100%. And he had his coming out game last week. But before that, he was flashing. So that's somebody that I'm pretty excited about because he's a big physical specimen as well. That runs really fast. So
yeah, and you got to imagine him being a rookie. It takes him a few games to get comfortable.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good already. So that's why I got him in all my leagues now.
Yes. I got him in a few as well. He's a legit player.
Well, all but one. Yeah,
all but one. No, I don't know. I don't even have him in that many, but I do have him in a few. It's time for our hot matchups of the week. And I'm telling you what, man, it's getting hot in here because I know I had the Ravens in my hot matchup last week, and that game was a lot more one-sided than I expected, the Ravens versus the Bills. But the Ravens did look great against the Bills. So I'm riding that wave right into week 5, and the Ravens versus the Bengals is my hot matchup this week. The bagel. Yeah.
The bagels.
The bagels.
You hungry?
The Bengals can't stop Derrick Henry and will have a hard time containing Lamar Jackson too. I guarantee it. But they're in a must-win situation with a record of 1-3, and Joe Burrow has been very vocal about that. He knows that. So he said in his own words that he's going to be perfect this matchup. And he's one of those guys that plays with passion. I believe him that he's going to come out just swinging for the fences, understanding that not only do they have to win, but they have to like get a lead to be comfortable. And I expect big things from Burrow and Jamar Chase, despite the Ravens having an awesome secondary. And T. Higgins had 10 targets last week. So he should continue to be involved. And Zach Moss and Chase Brown, they're going to mix things up with, what I said wasn't a committee, but clearly appears to be a committee. But they should both give you double-digit fantasy day if the game stays close. If things get out of hand, then you're going to probably get a big day from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and possibly Burrow. But if the game is close, then you should expect a nice big game from Zach Moss and Chase Brown again too. And then obviously on the other side of the field, you're starting Henry, no question about it. Possibly the best running back in the league. And Lamar, possibly the best quarterback in the league. You're starting him too. But I have concerns with the rest of the team, with the rest of the offense. Zay Flowers fell off after the first couple weeks. He started strong week 1 and 2. Then week 3, week 4, he hasn't really done anything. Likely fell off too, which I didn't expect. And I don't know what to say about Mark Andrews, but no one expected that. He's done nothing the entire season. I think 4 games is enough of a sample size to be seriously concerned at this point. I do think Justice Hill, if the game starts to lean in the Ravens' favor, I think Justin Hill could be a guy you start if you're desperate or just need to fill a second flex spot. Because this team is clearly leaning on the run. He had a good game last week, and they can't give every carry to Derrick Henry. So if the game gets a little bit out of hand, like 2 scores, I see Justice Hill getting involved too.
I definitely could see that being a high-scoring game. This is one of my games to watch as well. Obviously, we could only pick one, and I was debating between this one as well because this is a really hot matchup. Obviously, the Bengals put it on last week, scoring a lot of points. I mean, Zach Moss had a touchdown. Chase Brown had a couple touchdowns. And then Jamar Chase had a huge touchdown, right? Like he should have been wrapped up by 3 guys, ran it for a 60-yard touchdown, which helped me still lose. I came close in that one though. But definitely going to be good on that side of the ball. And obviously the Ravens, one of the highest scoring teams in the league. I mean, most people are afraid to tackle that grown-ass man by the name of King Henry.
Yeah, I would be too.
Giant amongst men. I mean, the guy is just an absolute monster. So he was just destroying people. And I think somebody did a funny commentary. They were like, when Trayvon Diggs from the Cowboys was tackling Derrick Henry, while he was doing it, he was yelling out, you ain't going to stiff arm me. While he was taking them down. I was like, that's hilarious. Like these grown ass men. Like imagine just getting thrown to the ground by Derrick Henry. That looks pretty cool.
And demoralizing.
But that's gonna be a good game. Regardless, I think it's funny. And by the way, I was laughing earlier because you said T. Higgins had 10 tits. And that's why I started laughing.
T. Higgins had 10 targets. Try to say that 5 times fast. T. Higgins had 10 targets. It's a tongue twister.
Higgins had 10 targets. T. Higgins had 10 targets.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
And dude, all right, just to echo what you were saying about Derrick Henry, I mean, he's so big and so fast. And the last couple years going into the draft, a few people, were doubting him. And it's like they just forgot what he did the first few years. And that guy, he might be slowing down a little bit, but he makes up for it in size and skill. And he's now on the Baltimore Ravens, where they're a much better team overall than the Titans, and they are a run-first offense that's just leaning on him. It's fantastic.
Perfect situation for him.
Oh, yeah. Now, who's your hot matchup?
Well, for my hot matchup, I ended up going with the Bills versus the Texans. These are some teams that are not going to be playing a whole lot of defense. Texans are giving up a lot of passes, like a lot of deep passes recently. Bills just lost Von Miller to a suspension, right? So he's not going to be playing. So they're not going to have a pass rush. And if you saw them last week, you just mentioned how the Ravens just completely demoralized them and destroyed them. And I don't think that the Texans have that kind of defense yet. They gave up 30 points to the Colts. They're giving up 20 to 30 points a game. It's ridiculous. So I could see this being a really high scoring affair, especially since Josh Allen only had 1 touchdown last week. The week before that, he had like 4 of them. So, he's going to come back with a vengeance. And so that's why I'm going to make a run for him. Buy low on Josh Allen right now, because this is your only chance for the rest of the season, guys. This is me telling you right now.
And I love that. He always does bounce back like with a vengeance, and I totally see that happening. Probably won't get Josh Allen in a trade unless you give a lot too.
Yeah, you got to get down,
Yeah.
And you gotta get it, brother. But I'm gonna pull some surprises here. Watch me. I'm gonna make some offers. I always, like I said, one thing I was talking to Joe before getting on live here is when it comes to trades, this is why I'm the trade king. I look at someone's team. I look at it like it's my team. What do I need? What are my issues? What are my holes? How can I fix them? And so that's how I look at it when I'm making an offer, because I want to give them a serious offer the first time, because I want them to know that I am seriously trying to make a trade, because we've all had that person that gives us a low ball offer and we're like disrespected. We all take it personally. We're like, fuck that guy, right? Like, I'm not going to deal with this guy. He's not even serious. He thinks I'm an idiot, right? Like, he insulted my intelligence. I'm not going to deal with him. So that's typically how fantasy football is, especially if you don't know that particular person and you're in a random league. You're not going to rub that person the right way. So that's why it's good to always have a dialogue. So me and Joe, we've agreed on different trades before. We go back and forth sometimes. People always get upset in our leagues. They're like, they get upset that we make certain trades happen. But at the end of the day, it's my team and his team, and we're not colluding. So at the end of the day, it's just fantasy football. So
we made 2 pretty big trades today. Well, at least, I mean, one of them was big. The other one was just kind of like an average trade. But we had a long discussion before one of those trades, and the other trade, I had to come at you a little bit more aggressive, because the first offer I sent, you just declined it immediately. So I sent Manny an offer and he declined it. So I sent him the exact same 2 players, but for a different receiver. And then he accepted it. And he said, man, I would have taken that without Trey Sermon. I'm like, oh, really? But I felt like I had to. I was like, maybe that first offer was a bit borderline disrespectful. So I better include him in this one, So you got to like, as many people will say, the trade has to hurt a little bit for both people involved. You can't just win every trade. It's a give. You got to give a little to get a little, and it's a give and take. And not you shouldn't leave a trade thinking like, yeah, I just got him. You should leave the trade thinking, all right, we're going to see how this works out. I took a gamble here. He took a gamble there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes you're going to see the result of that trade sooner than later, right? Like after a week or two. Like I had a guy I traded Jalen Waddle to the week before Tua got injured. Like that guy immediately felt he lost that trade. But then I had a guy that I, traded Alvin Kamara to. And, it's a slow and painful blow to the heart, letting me know I traded away the top fantasy running back. Yeah. So that's just how it is. You live with the result of your trades. You can't win them all. And as long as you deal like that, not only are you going to have fun, but it's going to make the league more active, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, if that's how you run your leagues, more power to you, because people love it.
And if you're always sending out bad offers, then you might actually send out a good offer, and people will just kind of like brush it aside because you've sent them so many garbage offers before. Like you might have to take a double take and you're like, wait a second, what am I missing? Because he usually just sends me trash, so you don't want to start on the wrong foot.
It's like right now our league chat's going off. Somebody's like, Zamir White, he's trash. I won't fall for that.
Zamir White was dropped in a couple other leagues I'm in, so
I dropped him in one league.
there you go.
I
That's
dropped
probably
him
one of them I'm
for
talking
Sean
about.
Johnson. So
Good. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so it just at the end of the day, I'd rather have Madison. Like it's just a mess over there. But anyways, let's go ahead and get over to the cold call of the week now, guys. It's getting chilly in here.
Getting cold now.
Now for today's cold call, I went ahead and picked the Raiders versus the Broncos. Man, because these are two teams that just absolutely suck right now. It is bad, man. The Raiders keep saying they're going to do something and they don't. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio Pierce is on the hot seat after this year. It's just such a disappointment already. He says he's going to give Zamir more touches. He gave him less. And Alexander Madison now it has earned more playing time, so we're probably going to see less playing time for Madison. You know, because anything Antonio Pierce says, they're going to do the absolute opposite. So that means Devontae Adams, they said they're not going to trade him. They're going to trade Devontae Adams. So wherever he ends up, guys, don't worry. It's going to work out to your benefit. But that's completely off topic. Sorry, let me get back on topic. Raiders suck. They're a dumpster fire. On to the next team. Broncos, they suck. They can't stick to one running back. All right, Javonte Williams, little Jaleel McLaughlin, who is nowhere near the talent Javonte Williams, and then Tyler Badie.
Yeah, I don't know.
He unfortunately got injured. You know, so it's like they were forced to use Javonte. Like, oh, Javonte actually gets better with the more touches you give him. Well, I wonder why that is. Well, that's because he's a fucking running back. He's not a speed back. He's a traditional running back. Just give him the ball and let him work.
He looked good last year. I'm confused by his usage very much.
I'm not. You know what it is? Sean Payton. Sean Payton's an idiot. He's an egotistical maniac. Like he was like that in New Orleans. He's like that in Denver now. He has to overcompensate for his little pecker, and he has to be such a dick to his players. And he's not really known for being a player's coach. He's known for being, a douche. So, and plus he always had beef with my Eagles. So suck it, Sean Payton. You ain't gonna get no love from me on this show.
Fair enough, man. I'm confused by the way they're using all the running backs. It's too much of a committee. They got to commit to at least one of those guys.
But I would play Cortland Sutton. That's about it on the Broncos side.
For my cold call, I'm going the Dolphins versus the Patriots. Tyler Huntley last week threw for less than 100 yards. And every player in Miami is severely handicapped, even Devon Achane, with Tua being out as quarterback. And obviously you're going to start Devon Achane, you're going to start Tyreek, but with much lower expectations because it's all the defense really has to worry about. Okay, we got Devon Achane and then 10 or 15 yards, like pretty much in that area. That's all they got to cover. The deep pass, they don't really have to worry about too much anymore. And starting Tyreek, this is crazy, but starting Tyreek gives you pause now because of their quarterback situation. He's not quarterback proof. Well, you know what? Like he probably would be quarterback proof with someone like Darnold. Sure. But like, let's just say this was Justin Jefferson in this situation with Tyler Huntley. He's probably not going to be quarterback proof either. So I don't know. I feel like the Dolphins should have considered a better backup. I don't know much about Huntley, but I don't know how that all happened. Anyway, I'm staying away from everyone except for Devon Achane and Tyreek, but severely lowering expectations. Waddle, you don't start Waddle. You can't. And now the Patriots, who are also 1-3, they don't bring much to the table either. Their backfield is a sloppy mess. Ramondre Stevenson started off hot, just like Zay Flowers. The first 2 games looked amazing and then completely fell off. He hasn't done anything the last 2 weeks, and he's fumbled in every single game. So that's, 4 fumbles over 4 games. That's not good. And they don't really have a passing game. So I'm just not going anywhere near the New England players or really this game as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned those teams, I was also debating between that game as well, because it's kind of these tough matchups for no brainers. Dolphins, who's going to be throwing that ball, right? It's terrible, and the Patriots, unfortunately, can't get any offense going. It's just hopefully I'm probably not even going to see them much because they're not going to be on red zone at all.
We're not going to get to much of this game.
They're going to catch like one or two drives for that whole game. The score is going to be like 9-6. Right,
it's quite possible. Yeah,
it's gonna be that bad. So play the defenses, guys. They're gonna get you like 15 points because it's gonna be absolute slow and a grind fest. But yeah, I'll stay away too.
Yeah, I feel like the defenses are a safe play this week for sure. Now let's get into our shit calls of the week. Oh man, who shit the bed? I did. All right. I did a player profile last week on Zach Moss, and I said the backfield belongs to him and that he is not in a committee. It certainly looked like a committee on Sunday, and both running backs played really well. I still like Zach Moss over Chase Brown a little bit, at least for a few more weeks, but the Bengals backfield does appear to be a committee, and Chase Brown is definitely more involved than I made it out to be, than I knew. So, I said really only focus on Zach Moss and trade and try to get him. I still think you should try to get Zach Moss on your team, but it is definitely more of a committee than I anticipated. And it looks like moving forward, they're going to try to get Chase Brown a little bit more involved. So I missed the mark. I mean, I was right about everything I said related to Zach Moss and his production, but I doubted Chase Brown way too much in my player profile.
Now for my shit call, I'm going to keep riding the Sam Darnold hate train. I keep talking shit about the guy, and the guy just keeps on shutting me up. I got to eat crow every week. Not that I said he's going to, not that so much I said he's going to continue to suck, but I haven't said that he's going to be good yet. So I haven't gone back on my he sucks statements.
Well, you did kind of last week say, he's performing much better than you thought.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he still doesn't suck.
Yeah, that's true.
So my shit call is, he had another big week, man, another 4 touchdown game, right? Like
Crazy.
That's his second one in a row. Like I was like, look at Sam Darnold trying to get paid here. So, that's my shit call of the week. Obviously, my big balls call was big. My guy only got 1 touchdown instead of 2, but he did hit the yardage. So
yeah,
you could
Brian
pick
Robinson
that.
Jr., right?
Yeah, Brian Robinson Jr. Yeah. But I mean, pretty much everything else spot on. I hit on my hot calls, so
Yeah, you've been nailing the big balls calls. I mean, just with very slight differences about 10 or 20 yards, or last week you said Kyron was going to get 2 touchdowns and he got 3. So I mean, you had the yardage right, but you just were short 1 touchdown. This one you said 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns, so you only got 1. So you're real close. And then, of course, the first week you hit on Xavier Worthy scoring 2 touchdowns, which is insane.
Yeah, and miss on a yardage.
My big balls call last week, never got to see it pan out because I said Rashee Rice was going to have another 100-yard day and 2 touchdowns. And, man, that really sucks. Yeah, it really sucks to see him go down like that.
That actually brings up another point. Was Xavier Worthy bumping up?
Yeah,
must start now.
And he looked great last week. So he had week 1 was awesome. Then he had a lull in week 2 and 3, and that's when Rashee Rice was heavily involved. But I felt like Xavier Worthy was going to continually climb up and make himself better as the year went on. Either way, but yeah, now with Rashee Rice out of it, at least for a little while, his volume should increase big time.
And here's the thing. And the thing is, too, if you own Hollywood Brown right now, sell him high. Right now, people think Hollywood Brown's going to be the guy. Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown will be the top 2 receivers. It's just Hollywood Brown's going to get injured again. So he's another James Conner. Just sell him now where he's at his value. He's coming back in the next week or 2, and you could make something back from that guy. Guaranteed.
In my opinion, he's way worse than James Conner because Hollywood's been injured.
Hurt.
Yeah, he's been injured for like 2 years straight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so he's someone you could sell off right now just on the idea of what he's going to be when he comes back.
If you're even still holding him, or pick him up just to trade him. That's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get into our big swinging balls calls.
For my big balls call, I'm going to talk about something that's going to be absolutely crazy here. Something out of this world. Something that I said was not even possible like 20 minutes ago. My big balls call is Javonte Williams is going to have 100 rushing yards and 1 touchdown this weekend because they're going to make sure that he is the main back this weekend. All right.
That's what they should do.
That's what they
should do. I would love to see that happen.
But you know what? I don't know what it is, but that's my big balls call is that they're going to play one running back consistently and he's going to actually have a good day. So it's going to allow his stock to build up and then sell him high, people. Sell him high. If he gets that game, sell him immediately because he will tank again. Do not count on the Broncos. Sean Payton is a dickhead. Do not count on the
Hey, you're right, though. I mean, I remember last year, there was, I think, some warranted hype around Javonte Williams. And midway through the season, he was a top 20 back. So
yeah, he was.
They should have him a lot more involved. But I agree. If he has a blow-up game, sell high.
Sell high, baby. Sell high.
Now, for my big balls call, again, man, sometimes when you do these big balls calls that are aggressive, I feel like mine are watered down because they are a little bit watered down. So it's not an elephant balls call. It's just a big balls call. I think Sam Darnold is going to stay hot and throw for over 250 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Now, the reason I'm saying this is a big balls call is because he's playing against the New York Jets. They've got a good secondary. That's a tough matchup. And I think 250 yards and 2 touchdowns is something that's going to be difficult for any quarterback. But Sam Darnold has been hot. I think he's going to stay hot. 250 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. I like the way that looks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we really do appreciate you supporting us here today. But the bad news is the show is over. If I offended any of you, too fucking bad. Get over it. Hit the subscribe button. Hate on me some more. Make sure to put that in the comments. I want to hear you hate because your hate makes me greater. All right.
Yeah,
there's
like
no
the
such thing as bad. No, I'm just kidding, guys. I'm not that much of a douche. I appreciate it, guys. Put your comments in below if there's something we could fix. Let us know. You guys been very vocal about it. Even the ones that don't know about football, we do appreciate your feedback.
For sure.
But everyone else, please let us know. Joe, what else do we have coming up for these guys here?
Oh, we got a bunch more player profiles lined up for you. And then I've noticed that, there's a lot of engagement with just the clips I've uploaded. There's a clip of Jamar Chase that got a lot of traffic and another one of Kenneth Walker. So we'll start uploading more random clips like that too. But always going to have player profiles for you every week. So tune in for those, especially if there's a player that's on kind of the fence. We might have done a player profile on them, or you can always put in the comments and suggest that we do that so we can bring up some points that maybe you haven't considered.
Absolutely. I like the way you put it, Joe. Now, again, people, we appreciate the love and support. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. You guys take it easy, all right? One love. Take it easy, guys. See you later. Don't do my Sammy Sosa kiss, all right? That's mine, Joe.